All right, so let's get started. Hello, pre-dentals. Thank you for joining us today. We're super lucky to have University of Utah and OHSU join us. So quick introduction. My name's Janice, and I'm the District 10 membership chair. And we're going to be talking about how to connect with dental schools today. So we're going to start with let me introduce Eric. Eric is the as the chapter president at OHSU, Thomas and Mitch as the pre-dental co-chairs, and then Sarah is the pre-dental chair and the chapter treasurer at Utah, and Jared is the pre-dental committee member. He just joined us. So panelists, go ahead and share with our attendees where you went to undergrad, your major, and a fun fact about yourself.
Do you want me to start, or are we going by first names again?
Yeah, go by first names.
Okay. So my name's Eric Fagerstrom. I'm from Juneau, Alaska. I went to the University of Alaska Southeast. It's a pretty small university, not a lot of resources for people getting into schools. And so I kind of come from a unique background in that sense that we didn't have a pre-dental committee or anything along those lines. And so anything I say, just understand that that's coming from a little bit different background than everyone else. Unique fact about myself. Oh man, I've been charged by multiple bears. So yeah, there's that.
That is interesting. Cool. I'm Jared. I'm just a pre-dental committee member, I guess you could say. I think it's up in this side. I went to Brigham Young University, Idaho, and I studied public health. Fun fact about me, oh man, I've got a 1-year-old son, and he is the cutest.
I'm Mitch. I went to Azusa Pacific in Southern California, and then I studied finance and then worked in the investment space a little bit. Then went back to Portland State and did all my science classes there, and then went to dental school. So a little non-traditional. And then fun fact about me, I'm a twin, so I guess that's unique.
That was cool. Hi guys, I'm Sierra. I grew up in Utah and I went to school in Utah. I went to Weber State University during my undergrad and I majored in microbiology and chemistry. And fun fact about me is I grew up in a really rural small town and rode horses growing up and did rodeo. So yeah, kind of fun.
Nice. Hey guys, I'm Thomas. I'm from Oregon. I grew up in Salem, Oregon, and I did my undergrad down at Oregon State, which is down in Corvallis. So I studied biology there, so pretty kind of traditional in that sense. Fun fact, when I was younger, about middle school, I got to take a really cool trip and visit Antarctica.
Okay. So today we're going to start with discussing the benefits of pre-dental ASDA. Jared, did you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. For me, I would say one of the biggest benefits of being an ASDA member, and I know when I was an undergrad, I think it's like $71 or something to become a member, something like that, for like the pre-dental kind of realm of ASDA. And I kind of almost talked myself out of forking out that 60 or 70 bucks. But the biggest thing that I benefited from becoming an ASDA member was actually the guide that they give you. It's called the Guide to Getting into Dental School. And I reference that thing on the daily. I feel like when I was in like the last couple of semesters of my undergrad, it just has a lot of really good tips about letters of recommendation, kind of like a schedule that you should follow roughly for your undergrad, how to prepare for the DAT a little bit, just a bunch of resources. But the main thing is it gives you a guide to all of the dental schools in the country, and it gives you just like quick stats just about like what percentage of their classes accepted from in-state or out of state, roughly the cost. And one cool thing I liked about it is it had a little picture of one of the students that went there with a little quote saying like why that school was unique. And I feel like I knew every one of them by name by the time I finally got into dental school, just because I referenced it so much. A couple other things that are benefits of ASDA that I used are just like these webinars. There was one specifically about interviews that I watched, and I really feel like I gained a lot about just like what common interview questions would be asked. And yeah, those are just a couple that I used a lot.
Okay. Mitch, would you like to talk to us about why we should talk to a dental school, and does it even help?
Yeah, I think it helps a lot. I also think it helps to do your research on the school first, to just kind of have an idea. And then when you talk to them, they'll have a face to the name or see any emails you sent them asking questions, and just kind of have an idea of who you are, how interested you are. And especially if you know something about them before they can tell you, and they don't have to go like, oh, please refer to our website, our FAQ. It just helps and can go a long way. And I'd say that's just good networking in general. So I think it helps just to get your name on the radar too. So.
Sounds good. Does anyone have anything else to add to that? Okay. All right. So the next question that we have is, what is the best way to connect with dental schools?
ASDA pre-dental, get after it. Contact your pre-dental club at your school. See if they have any connections to the local ASDA chapter. At least when I went to PSU, that helped a lot, or Portland State, just because it was right next to OHSU, and I could just connect through my advisor, the club, and then get connected with ASDA and go to events and be in person, and that was huge. And I know other students from schools further away in Oregon would go and do the same thing. And they would drive a few hours to come to events. But I think that really helps. And being a committee member the last few years for OHSU, it was cool to see undergrad students really showing up, taking the time to show interest. So, yeah.
Jared, so as a pre-dental, especially right now with COVID and everyone's like not flying anywhere, as a pre-dental, how do we connect with dental students and learn more about what student life is like?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. And things are constantly changing now with the pandemic and everything. But one way that like I and my undergrad connected with like current dental schools and dental students was through ASDA. We kind of set up these Skype calls, and I guess now that Zoom is popping and everybody's on Zoom, we could just use Zoom. But just kind of set that up through your pre-dental ASDA chapter to get on a FaceTime call with current dental students. And that's something that we can do remotely. That's something I did remotely anyway in my undergrad. But we were able to ask them questions just kind of similar to this, just based on their experience, and get their opinions on like the whole application process as well as their specific school. So that's one thing that I would say as well, or especially like during our situation now.
Mm-hmm. So Sarah, like when we're going to have pre-dental events again, right now I know a lot of them are canceled at dental schools. Do you think it's a good idea for pre-dental students to attend these pre-dental events?
All right, so I'm a little bit biased because I plan them, but I do feel like they're very beneficial. Just as a little background story, when I was a pre-dental, I went to 3 different pre-dental days, and I do feel like each one kind of taught me something different and or contacted me with someone who later became important, or it gave me a different perspective, being able to talk to students at the school and kind of figure out what their culture was at that school, kind of get like nitty gritty details that you can't get from professors about the school and how the school runs and kind of actually how it's going to be when you're there. So pre-dental days were really important for me in my journey to getting to dental school. And I think that if you go into them with an open mind, willing to learn, willing to talk to people, they can be really helpful. But you do have to go into them wanting to connect with the professors that are there, the students that are there, really immersing yourself in that simulation day to get the most out of it. And they can be really, really beneficial, I would say.
Did anyone else, panelists, did anyone else besides Sierra like attend pre-dental days?
I didn't, but I would like to add something that I wish that I would have had that opportunity at the school that I would have gone to, because I did a lot of the research on schools by myself and, trying to connect with people who have gone through the process of applying for dental school. And it's hard to find contacts and whatnot, but I was in a location that didn't really allow me to. Juneau, Alaska it has 50 miles of roads, no roads in or out. And so driving places wasn't really accessible to me. And so if you have the opportunity to attend one of those events, absolutely do it. It's going to help you out a ton. It's going to save you a ton of time and effort down the road. And so just be aware of those things. And I think that they'd be really beneficial.
Yeah, I wanted to add another thing. I agree with everything that Eric and Sierra just said. So at OHSU, I attended the one at OHSU when I was in undergrad at some point. I can't remember when. And that's something, so we have an event like that at OHSU every year. And it's just, it's a good way to really like see, I guess get a glimpse of what it's like, like a day in the life of a dental student. There's a lot of like videos out there on YouTube like that, but this is actually like, a hands-on experience that you're going to get. And even though, let's say you show up and you're doing some of these activities and maybe you're not really that good at them, or it just doesn't click. Well, I would encourage you to not get discouraged by that, because that's like the whole, and I think everybody on this panel can back me up. Like it's the whole like first year of dental school is just getting used to all that stuff. You've never done this stuff before in your life. I think that's a really good reason to attend these, these dental days or whatever you call them at dental school, is just kind of get your feet wet a little bit and just kind of, see what it's like. And if it doesn't click with you right off the bat, don't get discouraged, do what Sierra did and go to a couple of them if you have the chance. So.
Sorry, I know we're kind of taking a long time on this question, but I'd also like to add that one of the most important things, if there's a dental school that you really want to go to, is getting your face in their minds so that they remember who you are and so that they can make a connection with you. Because having been someone who has interviewed multiple people, it actually is very hard to keep track of different people and their faces and what they've done if there's not something super, super unique about you, which isn't necessarily a problem, but going to these events and exposing yourself to people who are doing the interviews when it comes time, that are on the admissions committee, it's priceless really when it comes down to making those decisions for them. So.
And lastly, I want to add that if you do attend the event, it's definitely a CV resume builder. And you can say that you attended the certain event. So it will look good on your ASDA application as well. And then, okay, so the next question that we have is, how do we know the dental school is right for me? Eric, did you want to grab that question?
Yeah, and so for me, it was when I chose which schools to apply to and which school to actually attend, one of the big things that I had to do was look at myself and see what qualities and why I decided to go into dentistry in the first place. And for me, that was, I wanted to serve underserved communities and work in a rural community. And so for me, looking at schools that had externships or rotations that offered offered the opportunity to kind of get my feet wet in those scenarios, that kind of geared me towards the schools that I was going to attend to and eventually apply to, or sorry, I said that backwards. Eventually apply to and attend. And so I would say look at the qualities and look at your tendencies and see why you're choosing dentistry. Whether that be you want to work with people, you want to make a good living. I mean, that's a very valid reason. But you're going to have to do a little bit of digging into yourself and see why are you doing this, and see which schools match up with that. And so for me, that played a big role in eventually choosing OHSU. The external rotations that they offered were kind of a big draw to me. And so look in and see what qualities you want out of the school, and then kind of gear your application process towards those schools.
Okay. Eric, did you also want to discuss like what are the questions that we should ask ourselves, or consider with for the ones that we have family, right? Of course. What are the questions that we should ask ourselves before applying to the school and considering if that school's right for us?
Right. And so for me, coming from Alaska, I mean, I can only speak to my own experiences. And so the other panelists are welcome to comment on these as well. But for me, there's no dental school in Alaska. And so for me, looking at which schools to apply to, it was which schools accept out-of-state people. Do you want to be close to home? Do you want to have your family accessible? Is cost a big concern? Because if you're paying out-of-state tuition, that's something that's going to be a financial burden. There's a significant difference between the tuition that in-state people pay and out-of-state people. And then, what other qualities are you looking for in a school? Is state-of-the-art equipment important to you? Or are you going to be able to get by with, a little lower quality sim clinic and clinic overall? And so those were things that I took into account when I was looking at schools. Additionally, one thing that you also want to look into is whether or not, if you're planning on specializing, look into whether or not the school is pass-fail or a traditional grading system. Because it seems like, from what I've heard through my 2 years of dental school experience, that specialties often, it's harder to compare schools that have pass-fail systems. And so, do some research on that and really look to see what matters to you. And then another big thing was mission statements. I mean, look into yourself, see if, that mission statement the school puts out aligns with your values, and see if that's going to be a good fit for you. So these are all things that you need to consider while choosing schools and eventually choosing the school that you're going to attend. And so there's no right or wrong answer. It's a very personal thing, and it's very individual. And so you're going to have to do some digging, like I said earlier, and see why you're applying to these programs, why you want to be a dentist, and see which schools align with that. And so that's what I'd have to say on that topic.
Something I want to add to that is yes, we're going to look at how much tuition is going to be, but also look at cost of living. For example, like if you're going to be applying to a dental school per se in let's say NYU, that's going to be, tuition is expensive, but living in the city is going to be more expensive as well. Definitely look at weather. I'm from California, and I moved to New Jersey for my master's program, and it was the first time I've ever driven in snow. It was quite an experience. So definitely look at weather, look at a lot of stuff that's outside of dental school life as well, especially if you have family. Okay, the next question that we have is, how can I learn about individual school curriculum styles and schedule, and do they vary greatly from school to school? Tom, do you want to grab that question?
Sorry. Yeah. So I think I haven't looked at a lot of the other schools, so I can't really speak for Roseman or Utah, but at OHSU, I know anybody can just hop on, like non-students, just random people can just hop on and just search what the curriculum is, just like OHSU School of Dentistry curriculum. If you Google that, it's going to pop up several links and you can see what each curriculum they have, like for the current class. And it changes it's changing. What's really changing a lot now because of COVID. But I mean, when we go back to normal, it changes, at least at OHSU, it changes basically every year. Not like super drastically, but a little bit. A couple of the classes kind of get moved around between terms and stuff like that. But by and large, I think it's pretty similar. And so I don't know if you guys can do that at Roseman or Utah. But I know at OHSU you can just look up and see, and I mean, you're not going to know what a lot of the classes are because a lot of them are coded, with a kind of a code, and I mean, I don't know. I haven't looked at it in a while. I think maybe some of them will actually say what the class is. I don't know if Mitch or Eric, if you've looked at it in a while, but yeah. So, and I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
You can find each term schedule on OHSU's website for first years, second years, all the way to fourth years. So, and yeah, I mean, you might not know what it is, but you get an idea. And they have descriptions on the website too, I think.
Let's see. How do I learn about the core values of a school? Mitch, did you want to answer that?
Yeah. So basically the mission statement of the school, the vision statement, basically just like you're applying for a job, I'd say check out the website, do your own research, look at any ASDA guides about the school or ADA guides, and just really dig into each school and try and figure out, where you want to be. And then also the core values of the school should be on there. And then I'm sure they'll be under frequently asked questions too, a little more specifically in some instances. But then I would also say call the school, email the school, the admissions office, and really just get to know them. Try to balance pestering them and really having good questions for them to answer. Not too superficial, but really so they know that you did your research, that you care, that you take it seriously, because that would make you, kind of like I was saying earlier, it would make you stand out amongst other people for sure. So.
And then should I be making contact with faculty or administrators for school I'm interested in at this time? Tom, did you want to answer that?
Yeah, so I think, so I guess it depends on what stage you're at in the application process. So initially, I think, yes, that would be a good idea, just, to get your name out there, and like kind of what we've been saying, attend these, the pre-dental days. That's another way you can do that. But just, yeah, reaching out via email or, whatever, writing a letter or something like that. Because it just, obviously it lets them know that you're a serious applicant and that you really care about this. But as I would say, as the application process kind of progresses and after you get an interview, it's good to, maybe like write a letter or an email after the interview, thanking your interviewers and stuff like that. But after that, I probably wouldn't do a lot. You got to take into consideration some of these dental schools are getting several thousand applications, and they know who you are. If you get an interview at a school, like a school at that point is they're taking an interest in you, and your chances are decent already after getting the interview. So I would be hesitant to keep kind of pestering them, I guess, by trying to reach out after that point. Like, they know who you are. They have a photo. They like saw you in person. They have your picture. They have your application, your personal statement, all that stuff. So I would kind of lay off after the interview. But before that, I think it's fine to reach out and, just get ideas from them on how to strengthen your application and like that. So.
Something I would like to add to that too is, yes, we do not want to reach out to them too much, but exception to that, there are always exceptions. Exception to that is if you're taking classes. For example, when I was doing my master's program, I didn't take a gap year. Technically, a lot of people apply to dental school after they finish their master's program, but I actually just applied, started my master's, and started dental school right after that. So during that time, you want to update the school with your grades and just, keep them, like you want the school to kind of remember you, right? And let them know that you're active and you're being proactive about, your application and everything. So you do want to update them your grades if you have like semester grades or quarter grades. Another exception is if it's post December 1st. At that point, most dental schools have selected a lot of applicants already. So, there's going to be a lot of people. By that time, you would know whether you're waitlisted. If you're not, if you're one of the waitlisters, it doesn't hurt to send them a short email and be like, hey, it's post December 1st. I just want to let you know that I'm still interested. So that's the two exceptions that I can think of right now that would be a good time and opportunity to contact the dental schools. And then we have this question here about research. Should we contact, and if it's helpful, to contact research faculty to take part in research prior to attending dental school? Thomas, could you give us the answer to that?
Yeah. So I think, so if we're talking about specifically doing, the research faculty at the school that we want to attend, that by no means is a necessity. And I'll even say even doing research in undergrad is by no means a necessity. Obviously it looks good on the app when you're applying, but as far as reaching out to the research faculty, I think it really just depends on kind of what we were talking about, like the mission statement of the school. Some schools, and this again kind of falls back on the pre-dents on you guys for researching the school and figuring out, are they more of a clinically based school, or are they big into research? So OHSU, we love the research. We are a pretty clinically based school as well, but we do have a pretty big research department too. And some of the schools, on the East Coast are really, really into research. So I think it just depends. And there's some schools like Marquette, when we did the interview there, their research, they had like one tiny lab that they did dental materials research in, and it was just kind of pitiful, really. They just did not have a research component to their school. So, you just got to be smart and do your own research on the schools you're applying to. And if the schools that you're really interested have a big research component to them, and maybe, if you're doing a gap year or something like that, why not? Yeah, it'd look really good. You'd get a lot of good contacts, because a lot of the people doing research for the dental school are probably professors that you're going to be getting lectures from during your first and second year anyways. So it kind of falls back on you guys to do your homework and see if they are involved in research or not. And if not, don't bother. Even if they are, it's by no means a necessity. I didn't. I don't know if I don't think Eric or Mitch did that. I don't even know if anybody in our class did that. Maybe somebody did, but.
So I'd like to touch on that a little bit as, doing research with the school. I don't think that's the big key factor, but schools do want to see that you're testing yourself and that you're applying yourself while you're in your undergrad and while you have free time. And so, for example, I did research on seaweed. I got a marine biology degree, and I did research on seaweed and whales for a couple years, and that has zero application to dentistry. But I was showing that I took initiative and, was staying busy and not just getting by with my undergrad education and kind of going above above the standard, and trying to get involved and trying to stay busy with my time. And so I'd say that that's one of the biggest things that you could do, is that if you do have time and you do have the opportunity, it doesn't matter what research you're doing. If you have the opportunity to do it, regardless of the topic, I think that it's something that you can add to your resume. And essentially that's what it comes down to, is how productive have you been in your undergrad, and what skills can you bring to this school, and what diversity can you bring to the school. And so don't get caught up in the nitty gritty of this. Just, stay busy, be proactive, and, take hold of every opportunity that you have to set yourself apart from other applicants. So that's what I'll say on the situation.
I wanted to add one more quick thing to that. Eric just brought up a really, really good point. So his seaweed research he didn't pertain anything at all to dentistry. And I did a similar thing. I did research in plant pathology in undergrad. And a lot of undergrads where I went at Oregon State, a lot of the pre-med, pre-dent undergrads wanted to do this like biomedical research and cancer and stuff. And they wanted to get in with these state-of-the-art labs. And it's like, when you're a freshman or a sophomore in college, like you don't know anything. Like it's really difficult to land a research job like that. So get what you can take these research positions, because it's research. Like, if you can get published on a paper, just get that experience. That's something you can put down in your ASDA application, and that looks good. So that was a good point, Eric.
Sierra, what should an applicant bring with them if they do get to meet the Dean of Admissions? Not for an interview, but just, if they were to be at the dental school for a pre-dental event or something like that, what should they bring with them?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of the times at pre-dental events, you will get to talk with someone who's on the admissions committee. And I think in general, it's a good idea to bring a very stripped down version of a CV. So I kind of like to compare it to your actual application that you're going to be submitting to dental school. There's a section where you can hit basically, I think, 5 or 6 main things that you've done that you think are important, that are your like 5 big accomplishments you want to highlight. And I think if you put, 3 to 5 really big accomplishments on that stripped down CV, as well as your GPA and anything else you feel is really super important. If you have your DAT score, if you have a personal statement, maybe bring that with you and they can give you some feedback regarding that. But just bring that, something quick and easy that they can look at that will help them just kind of place you, I guess. Nothing too crazy. And another good thing that I heard is, again, just setting yourself apart. We're going to say it a million times. You've heard it a million times. If you're a painter or a photographer, or you make trinkets, or whatever it is that you do. I had someone in my class bring a fly fish thing. I'm not really sure what it's called. And it's, again, something to set you apart, which is so important. So if you have something small you can bring that too. Show yourself off a little. Doesn't ever hurt.
And most importantly, bring a good question.
Yes, always bring a good question.
Yeah. Okay. Sierra, so what if an applicant gets waitlisted after the interview? What should they do to increase their chances of being admitted?
So kind of like Mitchell said, I kind of like to treat interviews like a job application, or the process of getting a job. When you're applying for a job that you're really interested in, it's always just good, kosher, I guess, to reach out, let them know you're super interested. And I feel like that could apply to dental schools. If you're on the wait list and you call the dental school and just let them know, I am really super interested in coming here. I'm willing to do what it takes to get to your dental school. I think they do take more of an interest in you, just because I don't think people understand how overwhelming it is for the admissions committees themselves. They are juggling so many things and so many students, and it's not something that they take lightly, picking who to let into their dental school. And I think if you're showing an interest, not being too overwhelming, but also not maybe just calling once, maybe call like in the 2 to 3 range, and yeah, put your name out there again. That's really the only advice I have on that. Sorry, guys.
Okay, we have a very, very popular question here that all of pre-dental students have thought about and experienced. How much of what I read on Student Doctor Network should I believe? Eric, I'll have you tackle that one.
All right. So this is so SDN. I'm sure you guys have been there. You guys have looked through it a little bit, and if you're anything like me, it was more overwhelming than anything. I mean, there's a lot of good information out there. I found most applicable the links that they applied to you know, different schools, statistics, and application stats and other links that provide basic information about schools. I think that SDN is valuable in that sense, that you may be able to find a more direct path to finding information about the schools. But when it comes to reading forums and reading personal posts and kind of trying to sift through what individuals are posting, I think that a lot of that information is just going to overwhelm you, and you're going to start comparing yourself to other people. You'll see people with stats that are better than yours that didn't get into dental school. And, you know, it's overall, I think that it was, I spent too much time on it, aside from those links that it provided. And so one of the recommendations that I would suggest is that if you reach out to a school, or you know somebody who's in dental school, or you know you have a contact for somebody that's, even if you don't know them super well, reach out to a dental student if you can, because they're going to be able to provide the best information that you're going to be able to get your hands on. And so whether or not that's you know, a family friend, or you know, somebody that you know, I know personally that I've worked with a number of individuals that I knew from high school and undergrad that I've helped through the application process. And that's something that most dental students are willing to do, because they were just as lost as you were during the application process. And so if you have to reach out to the dean of admissions at a school and ask them to put you in contact with a student, there are so many students around the nation that will be willing to help you out. And so if you know somebody, contact them and ask them specific questions that you have, because that's going to be your direct route to getting quick and efficient answers. You're not going to be wasting your time sifting through blog posts or forums, whatever SDN has these days. And so that's one of my biggest recommendations, is that find a dental student that you can get in contact with. And I know that I'm willing to do that, and I'm sure that everyone else on this panel is willing to do that. And so reach out to somebody, find a contact, and get a hold of a dental student. And I'd say that's the best advice that I could give on that situation is, you know, use SDN to find information about schools if you want to. I mean, sometimes they provide DAT scores across from different schools, you know, different statistics for what's going to make you a competitive applicant. But I'd limit it to that. I wouldn't spend too much more time on it. Get in contact, ask a student, and that's probably the best advice that I can give. Anybody else have anything to add?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I would say definitely don't believe anything on SDN, because every person's experience is different. Sometimes like people who go on there and rant and they're like, oh, you know, that school completely sucked, it was not for them. You know, it's simply because that school wasn't for them, right? So it could be that that school is for you. And, you know, we all have a different experience. So I wouldn't just go off of what other people are saying online. Okay, so we're gonna start answering questions that you guys submitted. The first question that we got is, what if you don't have a pre-dental club or organization at your school? Well, let me contribute to that first. Join ASDA. There's ASDA Free Dental. I'm going to put a link to everything that we talked about today at the end in the chat. So yeah, join ASDA. And then also something else that you can do is if you don't know what ADIA is, ADIA also has a, what is it? It's a Go Dental virtual fair. From what it seems like, they are having it on May 19th this year. And so pretty much there you can connect with every dental school. They're going to have representatives from every dental school in the webinar or whatever it is, and you just go in there and you ask direct questions. And then you can see if they have each school has their own little pre-dental club, or I know each dental school should have a ASDA chapter, and the ASDA chapter should have a pre-dental section, so you can get connected through that too. Does anyone else have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'll say something quick on that. So I didn't start the ASDA chapter personally, but at my undergrad, it was just like a pre-dental club at school. So it wasn't like an ASDA thing, but one of my classmates that's in my class now, he actually contacted ASDA and basically told them that we wanted a chapter at our undergrad. And he started that. And I think that was a huge thing that he was able to put on his application to dental school that made it super attractive to a lot of dental schools. And he I'm sure he got in multiple places, but he chose to come to the U. So if there's not one, might as well start one. And if you can't start an ASDA chapter for reasons XYZ, then just start a pre-dental club, make a simple poster about it. And even if it's just a couple people, like those are a couple people that you'll be able to make friends with and stay connected with through like school and through the rest of your life. So I'd say if there's not one, start one. Then that'll be a good experience for you.
I would like to add to that a little bit, just because my school, the school I went to had less than 2,000 people overall. There were classes that I took that had 3 kids in it. And there wasn't a pre-dental, pre-med, pre-nursing, whatever. There wasn't a club for health professionals. And so myself and one of my buddies who was interested in medical school, we started the pre-health professions club at our school. And so take the initiative, even if you don't have the resources at your school. That doesn't mean that you can't do the research and put in the work on your own. And so that's something that's going to be a huge resume booster when it comes to applying for schools. If you're able to show the schools that you're able to take initiative and start one of those clubs and be a resource to other students that you're interacting with, that's one of the things that I think most schools around the nation are interested in. And so don't be afraid to take that step. And if you don't have a club, do some research, reach out to somebody, see what that might entail. And whether or not that's another university in your area that does have a pre-dental club, and just asking what kind of events and what they do to get a general idea of how to attack that. I think that that's something that you can do to kind of set yourself apart and set yourself up for the future. So.
Next question we have is, can someone who did reach out to the school they are currently in share what that communication looked like? Did anyone communicate with their school prior to going there? No?
I think we kind of touched on it.
I mean,
but just maybe call them and email them, once or twice. Don't do anything too over the top or crazy. There's not really anything else you can do besides that. Maybe go on a tour if the school offers it. That's kind of on shutdown right now, though.
Yeah, I didn't like attending Roseman. I just applied and I didn't have a chance to go there because I was in the master's program. So if given the opportunity, I would have tried to at least reach out. Let's see. Next question that we have is, why do people drop out of dental school?
sorry, I will answer this one because that's kind of my fault on the bonus material. I didn't know we were live yet. All the people who dropped out of my class anyway, they were for good reasons. 2 of them were for medical reasons, and 1 of them was for a military obligation reason. So other than that, I don't have any personal experience I can speak to that. But I think it's just a good rule in general to do enough shadowing that you're sure dentistry is what you want to do, because it costs a lot of money and it costs a lot of time to get to that point, and it just really, it stinks when someone drops out after having put so much effort and time into something. So
Yeah, well, I feel like people who actually do drop out, it's usually for personal reasons and not so much of like, oh, I hate dentistry. Like, you don't really discover that you hate dentistry while in dental school. Like, that's very rare. Just because most of us go through shadowing, most of us know like what we're getting ourselves into. Like, you don't go in there and you're like, oh man, I really hate looking at teeth. Like, it has to have crossed your mind at some point. So if you're in dental school, you're in it because you want to be there. And if you don't, you likely wouldn't even be in the process of applying at all, because like you can like, how should I put it? There are definitely applicants who go into dentistry and they apply and they're like, well, I'm doing it because my parents want me to do it. Or I'm doing it because, you know, everyone in my family was a dentist historically, right? But when you go into the interview with the AdCom, like they interview so many applicants every year. They can tell straight off the bat whether you're in it to win it or if you're there because someone else wants you to be there, okay? And so with that being said, they know, like you wouldn't, if you really truly weren't into dentistry, they would be able to tell and you wouldn't make it that far into the process to begin with. So don't worry about like dropping out. Like there's a lot of people who go to dental school and it is stressful, but you know, there's a greater percentage of people finishing dental school than the people who don't. So think of it that way. And then this question is, I am a reapplicant. Is it beneficial for me to contact schools for feedback about last year's application, or is that annoying to the admissions staff?
I would say do it. I mean, you don't want to turn in the same application just based on guessing. Hopefully they'll just be straightforward and tell you why. And I mean, that's all you can do besides trying to improve grades, retake a DAT or anything like that, or get more shadowing experience or volunteer experience. But if they tell you, then you know, so that helps a lot.
yeah, to add to that, the worst thing they can do is ignore you, unfortunately. But also just another good tip is if you do have individual interviews, grab their card or their email or some way to contact them. I still have those, well, from other schools, and I did reach out to those people and either say thank you, but it would also be a good resource if you do need to reapply, to reach out to them specifically and say, hey, what can I work on? I think they would be willing to give you that feedback.
To second that, I think that one of the things that we focused on at OHSU is that we have to complete self-assessments very frequently when we do, whether it's a procedure, whether it's an interview, whatever. And so being able to look at yourself and kind of assess and see where you went wrong and look for some feedback, I think that that shows the school that you're willing to make changes and you're willing to adapt and see what you need to do. And so I think that that's a good idea to reach out and at least, I mean, don't be too forward with it, but you know, at least ask what you could do to make your application better. Is there anything you could be doing in the meantime to make yourself a stronger applicant? So I think that's a good idea.
And then there's a specific question for Mitch. How do you portray going back to school in your application to dental school? What things did you highlight?
Well, what did I highlight? Well, I was fortunate in undergrad to do some service trips, and I studied abroad. And those service trips, like, I studied abroad in South Africa, and then we did a lot of community development and stuff like that. And I highlighted that because that was really the first time I started thinking healthcare and started thinking dentistry. It was like right after I got back from that trip. And then I just tried to highlight how I moved on from that point and how I started shadowing, how I started, or not started volunteering, but how I continued to volunteer and just really had long-term commitments that I was a part of while I was also working full-time. So I think that helped too. And then taking all the science classes, and I did decent in that. So I just tried to show that I was well-rounded and really committed because I had no science experience at all from undergrad. And my first biology class and chem class I did pretty poorly in, but I showed gradual progression, I guess, while doing the post-bac and working. So whatever you can choose to like highlight what you've done before in college, and just every little thing, just really think about it and spend time and try and articulate it in a way that is true, because they'll find out if you're lying, but also like it makes you look good too, whatever you can do. Hopefully that answers your question.
And then there's this question that's more on application. Hopefully we will be able to answer this. So this question goes, for someone who's really busy, this person is a student and a mom, what part of the application holds the most weight, research versus volunteering? And what if you have to make a choice?
So I would say, from our experience at OHSU in particular, I'll probably say this for most schools too. If I had to take a guess, probably the volunteer hours, because I mean, like I was saying before about the research, like it's good, like it really is good, and it shows them that you go above and beyond, you're interested in academia. But at OHSU, our Mark Mitchell, he's our director of admissions, but he will tell every applicant that comes to interview at OHSU is that what they see lacking, and especially a lot of from the in-state applicants. So if any of you are from Oregon, they're planning to apply, he sees a lacking of the volunteer hours. And I just think that it shows, it shows the non-academic side. It really shows like the extracurricular side of you. And if you can get involved in a lot of, like long-term, especially volunteer opportunities, not like, you can do a bunch of like one day or weekend volunteer opportunities. I mean, that's good too. But, if you can get in with like some kind of volunteer organization or something like that and keep that up for a couple years in undergrad or post, if you're doing gap years, or I think that really speaks to your character, the non-academic side of you. And that's a really big thing that dental schools, I mean, they can see what you're like academically on paper. They can see your GPA, they can see your DAT score, but they can't see, what kind of character and heart that you have. So I would say if I had to err on the side of anything, just put in the time for the volunteer for sure.
Mm-hmm. Do schools focus more on DAT or GPA? I feel like for this one, they focus on both. Every school is going to be different. So it doesn't hurt to ask that question when you call admissions and be like, oh, hey, what's your lowest GPA that you will take? Or like, do you guys put more weight on this? And for the most part, I feel like they will tell you a very general answer. So I honestly think you should just do your best in both. And then if you really have a low GPA, and there are people who do, there are options to do like a master's program or a post-bac or something like that, where you can show that, hey, you are, capable of being a competitive applicant. So don't weigh too much on like whether the school's gonna weigh more on the DAT or GPA, because that's something that's beyond your control. So focus more on like what you can do. And if you know that that's something that's weak that you can work on, definitely work on it.
And to add to that, I think that if you do have lower GPA and DAT scores, try to supplement that with extracurricular activities. I know that for myself, I didn't have super competitive. My GPA wasn't super competitive. My DAT score was fairly average, but I had a lot of extracurriculars. And so I feel like if you are lacking in one area, try to push those other areas that you are strong in. And so I think that that's one way that you can kind of put yourself on a level playing field with other people, is identifying those weak areas and supplementing them with other areas that you are strong in. So.
And another thing I wanted to add real quick to that is, so my brother, he's also a dental student, and he had a very, very low GPA when he started, and he had to actually kind of take some time off from the 4-year university and do some time at a community college. And there's nothing wrong with that. Dental schools like to see upward trends with your GPA and stuff, and he was able to do that. But even when he applied, he was applying with a pretty low GPA. And I mean, that's the beauty of the DAT, is that it was kind of invented for people who didn't do as well in their undergrad class, so they can really prove that, even though maybe I got a couple C's in some of the core science classes, I still got a 21 on the OChem section of the DAT, or whatever. So it's so it definitely can be done, but there's no dental school that's going to tell you they favor one thing, GPA or the DAT. That's just not a thing. You have to do your best in both, like Janice said.
And then, okay, so someone asked a pre-dental guide that you get from ASDA. How do you purchase that? So you have to join ASDA. Go to asdanet.org, and then you would have to pay for an annual membership, but then they will mail you the whole booklet. Let's see. Next question. Does it make you less attractive of an applicant if you have a gap year? The answer is no, not at all. It's really what you do during that gap year or gap years that make a difference. So, if you're using that time, even if it's non-dental related, like Eric had mentioned, right? It's definitely like something that would be beneficial to you if you use that time wisely, because that's going to be a question that they're going to ask during your interview, like, what did you do? Or even your personal statement, you want to address that. Eric, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, and one thing that if you're taking a gap year for personal reasons and you have family issues, or you're just trying to get your life in order, that's okay. I mean, don't think that you're disqualifying yourself as an applicant if you're taking a little bit of time to get yourself together. For me personally, I had a few family issues that came up during my first application, and that went from 1 gap year to 2 gap years. But be ready to talk about that kind of stuff when it comes to interviews. And if you do take a gap year, try to stay proactive and try to get a job or some sort of research or volunteer activities that you can kind of supplement that time off with, and then be willing to discuss that during the interviews if you do get them. And so that's one of the biggest tips that I'd have.
Another quick thing, I know we're running out of time, but my really good friend in dental school went and traveled the United States in a van for a year, and people loved that. She got asked about it in every single interview. So you can use it to do something that will set you apart as well.
Okay, all right, so let's see. So our time's up. If we didn't get a chance to answer your question, please send us an email, okay? Our email that you can send questions to, I'm gonna put it into the chat box so you guys can take a screenshot of it, okay? It's district10@gmail.com. So I have been emailing people back, whoever has emailed me questions, and if I don't have an answer to it, I will reach out to our panelists here, anyone in District 10, So don't worry, your question will be answered. Just shoot an email there. Now, something else is if you haven't been watching our webinars, do subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have uploaded the previous week's one there, and I will put the link for the YouTube channel there. Screenshot that as well. And if you guys would take a minute to fill out the post survey for today's webinar. Now, let's see. So thank you guys. Good luck with the application, and thank you, panelists.